To get started on this project, you should have downloaded the LipSync project information as well as your folder that has all of the information inside of it. Remember, based on what group you're in, you will either be a male or a female poet to animate. Now once you download this, I'm going to be using the male poet for my example in this tutorial. Pay close attention to the MP3 files that I've given you. Notice that each one has a little asterisk star in front of its name. This is very important because I want you to animate and do a lip sync for up to 5 stars worth of content. This means you're going to choose at least 2 poems to create a lip sync animation for. And it can be any combination of these as long as the number of stars adds up to 5 total. So you can do a 4-star and a 1-star, or you could do 2 2-stars and a 1-star, anything like that. In addition to this, I'm also giving you a basic copy or a basic outline of a poet body, and you can see that they don't have any lips to this. This is where we're going to add the lips and sync it up with the animation. Finally, you should have also finished your lip positions exercise. When you open this up, this was the exercise that got you to step through and create each, let's see if I can zoom down, each of the little phoneme positions for the mouth that you're going to be animating in this project. Once you're finished with this, now we can set up our document for our project. To set up our project, we'll go up to File and down to New. Let's create a new document. The size of this document is going to be a typical full HD document, meaning it's 1920 by 1080. We're going to set the frame rate to 24 and keep the platform type to ActionScript 3 and say Create to that. This will give us our basic blank document. If we go down to our timeline, let's rename our layer 1 as our background. Whoops, add a D at the end of that, there we go. And let's import one of our actors to the stage. Go back up to File, down to Import, and choose Import to Stage. Locate your project information folder and choose just one of the pictures to work from. I'm going to choose the Male Portrait 1. When you do this and you say Open, Animate may give you a warning that says that these files appear to be in a sequence of images. It's noticing that there's a 1, 2, and 3 to it. Do you want to import all of them? We're going to say no to this warning. When you do, it should just import the one picture, and you can see I've got the one picture in my library. It is larger than my screen or my stage that I'm working on, so let's choose our transform tool and scale it down so that it fits nicely within the stage. As long as it fills up the entire stage, I'm okay if it overhangs and bleeds just a little bit. Let's center it up a little bit more. Next, let's return to our timeline. I'm going to lock down my background layer and create a new layer. And inside of this one, I'm going to call this my mouth layer. This is where we're going to import the mouth and place it on top of our character. To do this, let's import it to our library. I'm going to go back to my exercise where I created the mouth, go to the Libraries panel, and select that mouth positions graphic that we created. If you hold down Control and click on it, or right-click or double-click on it, you can do Copy. With it copied, let's jump back into our new document and return to our library where we can hold down Control or 2-finger click and paste that positions into there. Now that we've got our mouth positions, we can drag it onto our stage. We should be inside of the mouth timeline, and you can see my mouth is pretty big for the shape of his face. So let's zoom in just a little bit and resize it. I'll move it up, choose my Scale tool, and scale it down to be an appropriate size for the figure that you have. I'll place it over. Here it is, mouth at rest. Now let's import the audio file into our Animate document. Returning back to the timeline, let's create one more layer. This third layer, we're going to call it the audio layer. And with that first frame selected, let's import the MP3 file. Going back up to File, Import to the library. In this case, now we can choose one of the poems that we want to work on. I'm going to choose poem 1265. We'll say Open, and you can see this has now been imported into our library setting up here. Now, on the timeline, with this first frame selected on the audio layer, let's go to our Properties panel. Inside of the Properties panel, look for the Sound label. Under the Sound, you can choose that new MP3 that we imported. Now, one thing to keep in mind, whenever we work on creating and placing each of the mouth positions within this folder, we want to be able to hear it as we're playing it. So we need to set the sync from event to stream. With stream turned on, this will allow us to hear it as we work on it. Later on, however, when we go to test it, we'll need to reset this back from stream back to the event so that it can be played. But for now, we're going to keep it on stream. Returning to our timeline, you can see that there's just a hint of the audio file right there. So what we want to do is we want to extend out our time so we can see the entire event. To do this, select some of the frames and press F5 to insert just some blank frames. Keep doing this and moving down your timeline until you see all of the WAV file has been completely loaded. This should take about 30 or so seconds, actually it should be longer than 30 seconds. It should take however long it takes for the entire poem to play out. Aha! In my case, I went way too far. I can see my poem ends at about 30 seconds, 33 seconds for this one. If you do go too far, all you have to do is select those extra keyframes by clicking and dragging over all of them, and we're going to delete them away. In my case, I had way too many. I'm going to do Shift F5, and that will delete those away as well. Now, the last thing that we want to do before we get started, let's go all the way back to our first keyframe and select it here. I am going to lock down my audio layer because the mouth layer is what we're going to work on. You'll notice that when I scrub over, the mouth keeps moving by itself. Of course, I don't want it to do that. I want to be able to choose the exact frame that I want to work on. So click once on your mouth icon and mouth symbol. With it selected, go to the properties and change the property of the looping from loop to a single frame. We want to choose exactly which frame to pick as it's playing over the audio. Now let's start matching up some of the audio. If you go down to your timeline, you can move your playhead over the audio and hear what it says, or I can hit return and listen to the entire audio.
1,265.
I'm going to suggest that you break this up into a couple of words at a time. If you try to do too long of a stretch, it can become very daunting. So to do this, I'm going to turn on my looping feature. With loop turned on, I can select just the word segment that I want, and when I hit return,
1,200.
And now I can hear just the words 1,200. I'm going to do the animation for just those few bits. The next thing I need to do, with my audio layer locked down, choose your mouth layer, and that's the layer that we're going to be working on. In order to select the frames that we want to work, we need to open up what's called our frame picker. Going up to Window, locate the frame picker option, and as long as you have your mouth option selected, the little symbol for your mouth selected, this will show you all of the different frames that we created within that particular symbol. And so this is going to make it very easy to pick out which phoneme or which mouth symbol to use as we place it over our audio. Next, let's go back down and listen carefully as we scrub over the audio. So this little hump right here is the word one. And as I listen to it very carefully, I'm also mouthing along with the audio itself. I'm trying to figure out which position it takes to say w, on, one. And so just those few frames is what's going to, all that I need. I need the W, the ah, the O sound, and then the n type sound. To do that, I'm listening for what it is. So right there is where he starts to say the W sound. Now, of course, when you talk, you form your lips before you actually say the sound. Think of it as you see lightning before you hear lightning. So I want to be able to see the lips being formed just a frame or two before I hear the W, the w-on. So there's the W, so maybe a frame or two before is where I'll start the W for my phoneme. So with that frame selected, and only that frame, we can go up to our frame picker and let's choose that w starting sound. Next, going down here, there's the on sound. So let's choose the open O or w I'm gonna make it larger, and then n. There's the n sound immediately afterward. One thing I noticed within mine is I made a mistake. I should have added the N sound to this particular set, but you could probably figure that out for this one. So now here he's starting to say the t sound. So I need to select this frame. Let's go up to the T or the L. There it is here. Th. There's the I. Thousand, so the O or the ah. You can either do thousand or thousand. I think the A. Thou. I, O. Now it's kind of going from an I to an O. Thou. S. Now I hear an S for the S sound. The N again goes from right here, so there's the N, keeping it the same. 1,000, same thing. 2, so the T sound needs to be picked up, which will stay basically the same. T, oo. With the oo, this is a smaller O. So the H, the H sound, which I believe it's not on here, but we can keep it as a H or an A. And the N again. The D or the the E sound, and then the D sound again. So with all of those frames placed in there, let's go ahead and test it.
1,200 and 1,200 and 1,200.
So I can see it's getting pretty close. Where it says 200,
1,200.
I'm missing the T type sound, so a T. Let's do a TH right there.
1,200 and 1,200 and.
And there we go. Now that it's placed over here, we can scrub through and see how just those few words work. And this is the process we're going to repeat all the way along through the rest of our poem. Move your loop down to get the next few words. I actually like to overlap the last couple of words.
165. 165.
So 200. So there's an S sound. E. S. E. S. Or a K or a S. There's the T sound. T. Six T. There's an F or F. I. I or E. Five. It goes back down to the V type sound. 5.
165. 165.
That's looking pretty good. Now, one last thing to point out is when they ever do a rest, make sure he doesn't just stop on the last phoneme, but once he stops saying 5, he needs to go back to a resting position.
165, 165,
Let's loop this through the entire area.
1,265, 1,265.
So far, so good, looking really good. I'm going to repeat the rest of this process for the entire sequence and see what it comes out to be once it's finished. All right, now I've gone through and you can look at my timeline and see where I've placed the keyframes for all of the different phonetic sounds that the mouth is going to make. When I play through the entire thing,
1,265. The most triumphant bird I ever knew or met embarked upon a twig today until dominion set.
now if I go through and I start to see maybe a few little changes that I want to create, like for instance when he said day, I think that E, that's more of an E kind of sound than an A sound. So maybe I'll go back and I'll make a change to that particular one, today.
Today.
That looks much better. So go through, play through the entire poem that you have, and once you're finished, we can also test this in regular testing mode. Before we do that, let's go back down to our audio layer and unlock it. Select that first keyframe, and let's return to our properties panel. From here, let's remove it from being in sync with the stream and set it back to sync with the event. Now whenever you play it, it should play it in high quality and only play and repeat it once it's completely finished out with that. You can go up to Control and test your movie.
1,265. The most triumphant bird.
And you can see how it's actually working really well for this one. Now that we're done, save up this animate file, go into File and Save, and this animate file is what you're going to upload to Moodle once you're finished. Remember, this is only a 1-star poem that I worked on, so I need to have at least 4 more stars to finish out the rest of this project.